Are you looking for an auto manufacturer that lies about their emissions and worked with the Nazis? If so, this is the 2014 Jetta. We're checking it out today, and we are going to decide if it's a buy or if it's a bust. That's right, this generation of Jetta ran from 2011 to 2018. This 2014 is a TDI, which means it has the diesel engine. I think having the diesel engine is really cool because it is such an odd thing today. There is very, very few of them left, and a lot of them have really big positives. But we're gonna see how the positives weigh against the negatives on this car. We're gonna check out the common problems, reliability issues, the good and the bad of this Jetta after 10 years and 180,000 miles. As we start our walk around on the styling, I gotta say that I think these look a lot nicer than the previous generation of Jetta. I think they look a lot more like the Audi. You can see the family resemblance on these cars for sure. There's really not a whole lot to remark on the outside. There was only one mark, and it's from a repaint on the edge of this fender, so I'm not gonna fault Jetta for that. As we go down the side here, everything is clean. There's not a lot of rust issues to talk about on these. I do notice that the wheels are peeling pretty terribly, honestly. The clear coating that they put on those is definitely coming off. Otherwise, everything looks really nice. The paint has held up well. I really don't have much to talk about on the outside because it is a pretty solid little car and looks sharp still. Under the hood here, we have the 2-liter diesel 4-cylinder engine that pumps out 140 horsepower, but 236 pound-feet of torque. That is typical for diesels. They always do way more torque, and the horsepower numbers are pretty low. But that's okay on a diesel motor. So before we get into the specific issues with this engine, I need to make a few notes. One is, this is still a 2-liter engine. The previous generation was also 2-liter, but this one is updated. It is much more reliable overall than the previous generation of Jettas. That being said, it still does have some common problems that you gotta look out for, and the thing about these is everything on this car, almost, it seems, comes after about 150,000 miles. Somewhere between 150 and 200, I would say. Up until that point, the cars are very reliable. So if you're looking at a low mileage one, I think you're set. However, when we get up to this 150, their maintenance starts to become a little more common, and some of the issues are larger. So it's something you really want to look out for on these issues if you notice signs that some of these things are starting. The two biggest things I would look out for after that 150,000 miles is turbos tend to go bad after 150, and so do the injectors. Both of those are quite expensive repairs. And really, you can last a little while with injectors, but turbo, once they go, they go. There's really no way around to replacing those. And unfortunately, government has killed reliability of diesel engines because of their emissions stuff. This one's no different. The EGR cooler, which helps with emissions, can fail, as well as this car has the check engine light on for the DPF filter. If you don't run them hard and hot from time to time, like really get on them and work through them, it'll throw a code for that because those filters start to get plugged off and can't burn off. Now, the other thing on the engine as we move towards the transmission here is the flywheel. These have a sort of two-piece flywheel. It can come apart. It will make a nasty noise, and that is your sign that it has to be replaced. If you don't, you will have major, major issues. Transmission itself is pretty reliable. This is the 6-speed manual transmission. The autos are fairly reliable as well, actually. I wouldn't be scared of one of those at all. The only real thing about these is obviously you're going to have clutch wear over time. Nothing really abnormal other than sometimes the clutch noise on these, they will make a screeching sort of sound as they get older. And while it may not leave you sitting or cause any real problems, it does get noisy. One thing on the engine that I didn't get to yet is the water pump. These have a variable flow water pump, which sounds overcomplicated, and it is. And it can fail and cause you overheating issues and just a variety of problems. And those are pretty common to fail after that 150,000 miles as well. So you got to look out for that. As we move on to the interior and I pop this door open, you will see, as I did, right away that those seats look nearly brand new. I wouldn't say that VW leather is my favorite feeling leather. It's a little bit harder, but it wears really, really well and is impressive. The foam feels good, all of that stuff. Dash is worn nicely. There's no crazy wear tear anywhere on the inside of this car. After recently being in several small cars, kind of the entry level like this one, this is actually one of my favorite interiors. Most of the materials are nice to the touch. There's still cheaper plastic that you're going to have in any cheaper car, but the fit, finish, all of that stuff, I'm pretty impressed with. Now, the one sort of Achilles heel that has always been around German cars in general is kind of electric issues, electronic stuff. And this one is not immune to it. First thing I noticed, and this is a problem on this car, is switches and window regulators are very common to go out on these cars. So not a crazy fix, but it is really annoying when your windows won't go up or down. So that's something I always have to take care of in any car that I'm in. Not a huge expense, doesn't scare me away from the car. The other one is the wiper motors have a tendency to fail. If you're in a rainstorm, could be a big problem. Unfortunately, the electronic issues don't stop just at the windows or the wiper motor. The keyless entry for the driver's door has recently quit working on this car, as well as the heated seat, at least on the driver's side, no longer works. So, seems like VW has a problem, just as a lot of German cars do with the electronics. Other things on the interior that I noticed, there's only really two real wear things that I noticed. One is the cup holders themselves, and it's tough to show you on camera. The piece that your cup sits in mounts from the bottom, so if you put any real pressure, it pops that piece out. This one you've had to pop back in a few times, as well as there's a little plastic piece up on the dash that's missing over time. A few little things like that, but really I am impressed with the overall wear and tear on this interior. The seats are not my favorite in these cars, but overall it's a fairly comfortable place to be. As I crawled into the back seat here, I noticed that my leg room is impressive. This seat is where I would sit, and I got plenty of room. Granted, I'm not a super tall person. The one issue is the headroom is pretty close here. I do not have a lot of headroom. If you're taller than me, you're probably going to run into an issue there. The seat itself is comfortable. I feel like the back is fairly spacious. The seat is extremely hard, though. The bottom specifically is a very stiff foam, and I think I would notice on a road trip. All right, we're pulling out here in the Jetta in the 6-speed manual diesel, which is just a pretty cool setup. I gotta say, I love that idea. One of the things I noticed on this car, and this is not a problem, but it's just something I'd have to get used to, is when you go to start it, it is keyless start. Love that. But you have to press and hold the button. Like, you cannot just kind of click it with passion and let it start. You gotta like press and hold and hold and hold, and eventually it starts. Just how Jetta did it, not a fan. I noticed that this is just a super quiet engine. It is amazing that diesels can be as quiet as they are. This one, you can almost not really even tell that it's diesel, you know, other than a few moments at idle or something where there's a little bit of roughness to it, but it's really refined. I actually, I really appreciate that. Up through the gears, everything is smooth, and really nothing noticeable. It does not feel fast at all. It feels slow until you get up into those, you know, unless you're really revving it. Now, if you're not familiar with diesels and you're wondering why would you get a diesel over a gas car, and that is generally fuel mileage. These are rated at 42 on the highway, which is actually a little lower than some of the previous generations. Some of them went up to like 50, but emissions kills everything. So 42 is still really respectable. That's the reason to buy it. The issue is, with diesel prices being more expensive, it probably doesn't come out ahead in today's age as much as you would like over something that's gas and gets 35 miles to the gallon of a comparable car. Steering, brakes, all of that feel really good. We're going to get on it just a little bit here. Yeah, and you really got it. It actually is okay on power there. We're on a back road where I can't really like get on it, but it feels okay with power, but you really got to wind it out. The driving experience feels very German, which is, you notice your hard seats, you notice the hard suspension. It's just a common thing with German vehicles, but the actual like steering and stuff like that is probably a little bit more intuitive than you know, some American cars. One of the things I do notice is actually like the interior is fairly quiet except for this door over here. There's something that is loose and making a bunch of squeaking, which is actually pretty annoying. Not super surprised by that. One of the things I do notice as I'm driving this, the infotainment system is still old. It is not anything like the newer vehicles out there, but it has aged better than a lot of them. It has the backup camera, things like that. Although a lot of electronics fail in these cars, as I mentioned, there is some good about it too. I think that makes it feel a little bit newer than maybe what these cars, you know, actually are at this point. And while this car does not have a ton of clunks or anything like that, control arms are very common in the suspension to go bad, the bushings and things, and you got to replace them and get it aligned and all of those things. It can be several $100s. It's not the end of the world, but it is a little bit too common on these cars. Back from the road test, and it's now time to decide if this is a buy or a bust. This car is a little bit tough for me, guys. I gotta be honest, because it's a really solid car in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things I actually really like about it. The problem comes in that the issues with this car, because it's diesel, are so much more expensive. The repairs are going to cost so much more, and they crop up around the 150,000 miles. These videos I target to cars that are 150 and over, and if you should buy them at that point, I think you're going to have to dump too much money into this car. The only way I could say and really recommend this is if you have experience with them, or you're comfortable dumping the money in so you can get another 150,000 miles. The engine itself is pretty good. The transmission itself is pretty good, but some of those problems are just too expensive to overcome. These cars run probably about $5,000, and I don't think that's a bad price, especially with the fuel mileage and things like that. They are a little bit nicer than the other small cars, I feel like, but the reliability is a concern for me at higher mileage. So today we are going to call this one a bust. But it's a thin line between a buy and a bust on this one. And I think if you had some experience with them or you're comfortable with the repairs, it could definitely be a buy as well. Now, I'm curious to see if you have a Jetta, have had problems. I want to hear about them. I want to know if you agree with me, disagree with me. I want to hear it all. Put those comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so